I didn't mean to waste my life, but I did. It happens quietly, you know, not with some big decision, not with evil. Just one ordinary moment at a time. You skip one dinner, you miss one call. You say, next week, end quote. And that word, next week, is how I lost almost everything. Then suddenly, it's been decades. I'm 84 years old. I was a butcher for 41 years. Cincinnati. Small shop. Smelled like sawdust and blood. I lived in the same house since I was 33. Same driveway. Same kitchen table. Same woman across from me. Until she wasn't. We were married 52 years. Her name was Judy. If you drove past us back in the day, you'd think, that's a couple who has it figured out, end quote, but you'd be wrong. Judy died 7 winters ago. Slipped in the bathroom. By the time I got the ambulance on the line, she was already gone, still holding her toothbrush. That night, I was cleaning out the garage. I couldn't sit still. My hands needed something to do. Behind the old snow shovels and rusted lawn chairs, I found a shoebox. It was full of birthday cards. From her, from my son, even a few from the neighbors. Most of them had never been opened. I just forgot. One card said, Earl, we miss you at dinner, end quote. Another, Dad, I'm proud of you. Call me, end quote. They were dated back to 1994. And 2001 and 2007, I sat on that cold garage floor, shoebox in my lap, and I realized something I'd never let myself say out loud. I never meant to push anyone away. But I did. Because I believed a lie. A very small, very deadly lie. It went like this. I'll get around to it next week, end quote. That lie ruined more than you'd think. It started small. Judy would ask, can we go see your sister this weekend? And I'd say, next week, end quote. Our son wanted help building a treehouse. I said, next week, end quote. A neighbor invited me fishing. Same answer. I told myself I was being responsible. Long shifts, grocery bills, house repairs. So I kept choosing work over people. I kept betting on later, end quote. But love doesn't wait. But they don't. Judy got quieter over the years. She stopped asking after a while. She'd hum to herself in the kitchen, fold laundry, open the curtains in the morning, even if it was still dark out. Our son moved out at 19, said he needed space. In question, I thought it was just a phase, but he didn't come home for Christmas that year. Still, I didn't worry. I figured I'd reach out next week. I always thought next week was guaranteed. And I'll tell you something else I never admitted. I liked the idea of later in question. It felt safe. It meant I didn't have to do the hard thing right now. Didn't have to apologize. Didn't have to change. But later is where the house starts to go quiet. It's where conversations die without a funeral. It's where love turns into routine and routine turns into silence. If you're sitting there, watching this on a random Thursday night, maybe half listening, maybe thinking about someone you haven't called in a while, don't wait for next week, because next week doesn't care what you meant to do. It only cares what you actually did. And right now, at 84 years old, I can tell you, I opened the cards too late. So I'm begging you, don't do the same with your life. Because the trouble with time is, it never tells you when it's running out. You just wake up one day and realize nobody's waiting for you anymore. The pattern got worse after I retired. I had nothing but time, and still, I filled it with nothing. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. out of habit, make coffee, black, eat toast in the dark. Then I'd sit in my chair, stare at the same corner of the wall, pretending I had errands to do. The phone didn't ring. Do you know what the loudest sound in an empty house is? A phone that never rings. And I didn't call. You'd think loneliness makes people reach out, but sometimes it just makes them quieter. Before she died, there was one night I replay in my head. Judy started spending her evenings upstairs. I didn't ask why. She said her knees were hurting, but we both knew it wasn't her knees. One night in February, I walked in the bedroom and saw her sitting at the edge of the bed. She was folding laundry. There was this pink sweater she always wore when we were dating. I hadn't seen it in years. It was soft, like a blanket. She'd wear it when we watched the weather on TV together. That was back when we still sat on the same couch. She folded it slowly, set it in the drawer, and then she said it. You don't even see me anymore. In question, just like that. No anger, no yelling, just a quiet truth dropped in the middle of a tired room. I looked at her, and for a second, I didn't even recognize her. Her hair had gone grayer than I remembered. Her eyes didn't sparkle like they used to. She looked tired, like someone who hadn't been asked how she was doing in a long time. The bedroom lamp was flickering, that dull yellow light, buzzing faintly. I remember the sound of it. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, because she was right. I hadn't really seen her in years. I saw the woman who made dinner, who scheduled the appointments, who reminded me to take my pills. But I stopped seeing her, the way she used to hum when she watered the plants, the way she'd press her fingers to her lips when she was thinking, the way she'd tilt her head when she was trying not to cry. All those little things I used to know by heart. Gone. I sat down on the edge of the bed, close enough to feel the warmth of her knee through the fabric. But I didn't touch her. I didn't say I'm sorry. End quote. I didn't say anything at all. That silence, it wasn't peace. It was distance. The kind that forms between two people who stopped reaching for each other years ago. She folded the rest of the laundry, one piece at a time, in that same slow, steady rhythm. Then she got up, turned off the light, and went to bed without saying goodnight. I stayed sitting in the dark, holding that pink sweater in my lap, and for the first time in years, I realized how far I had let her drift. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I kept saying, next week, end quote. I'll make it up to her next week. I'll plan something special next week. I'll say the right thing next week. But by then, the sweater was already folded. The room was already quiet, and I had already lost her. She was still there, still alive, still making my coffee, still folding the towels just right. But the part of her that looked at me like I mattered, that part was gone. And when she died, that silence we'd been living in, it became permanent. After the funeral, people stopped by, dropped off casseroles, said kind things. Then they went back to their lives. I stayed in the house. Same chair, same routines, but it felt like I was living in an empty museum. Everything familiar, but frozen. My son came by once a week, out of duty, I think. We made small talk. How's work? How's the weather? He never stayed long. Then, one June afternoon, I got something in the mail. No return address. It was a card. A Father's Day card. I thought maybe he was reaching out. Maybe he was ready. Maybe we could finally talk. I opened it, and inside, he'd written one line in thick black ink. Too little, too late. And that was it. No signature. Just that. The envelope was still warm from the sun. The ink had bled slightly, like maybe he'd written it in a rush, or maybe with a shaking hand. I stared at it for a long time. Then I looked around for a place to put it. And there it was, an old beer can sitting on the porch table. Still cold, half full, left there from the day before. I set the card next to it and just sat there. No birds, no cars, just the distant sound of a lawnmower somewhere in the neighborhood. And me, with a beer I didn't want, and a sentence I couldn't take back. The silence after that felt different. Not like loneliness, more like judgment, like the walls had finally learned to talk. And what they were saying was that I'd run out of time. Here's what I need you to hear. If you're in your 30 seconds, 40 seconds, scrolling your phone at 11:47 p.m., telling yourself you'll call your dad tomorrow, telling yourself you'll fix your marriage next month, telling yourself you'll be present when work slows down. If you keep telling yourself, later, hear me, later always sends the bill, because that's the same lie I lived in. And one day, that lie is going to show up in your mailbox, inside a cheap card, written in words you can't unread. That's how regret works. It doesn't arrive all at once. It drips, slow, quiet, but by the time it fills the room, you can't breathe anymore. You think you'll recognize the moment everything goes wrong, but you won't. It'll just be a Tuesday, a missed dinner, a phone you let ring because you were tired, and then it's too late. Don't wait for the hospital bed. Don't wait for the funeral. Don't wait for the shoebox of cards that never got opened. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to warn you. This version of me, the one sitting in a quiet house full of ghosts, you become me, one skipped conversation at a time. So if you're hearing this, if your heart is beating, if someone you love is still alive, don't say next week. Say something now. Do something now. Before you scroll again, send the text. Make the call. Put the visit on the calendar. Because one day, you'll open the mailbox and find yourself staring at the words, too little, too late. And that's the last sentence you'll ever get.